Assalamu alaikum students, hope you all are in good health. Students, let's revise the previous diary in which we started the unit number 3 named the human transport system. And we discussed this fact that if your body want to keep working properly, it needs some food, oxygen, water, heat that should be carried from one place to another in proper time and in proper way. So the one component that is performing this job is heart. And we know that the job of the heart is to pump the blood through the various blood vessels. We then discuss the structure of the heart. Here is the heart cut downwards, and it's the central view of the heart. The blood is very important because it helps to transport oxygen to the body. As we all living things need oxygen for the need of the survival, this oxygen we get from air enters in our body and it flows and reaches all parts of the body with the flow of the blood, which means that our blood carries this oxygen and takes it to all the respective parts of our body. Then here we said that this is the right atrium and this is the left atrium. These both atriums are separated by a muscular wall. Here is the right ventricle alongside with the left ventricle, and again same like atriums, they are also separated with each other through a muscular wall. As you can see here, the left ventricle is slightly bigger than the right one. That's why when we ask somebody what is the position of the heart, so they put their hands to the slighter on the left side of our chest. That is because the left ventricle is little tilted towards the left side of our body. That's why we feel that our heart is present on the left side of our body. The both atriums when in one are known as atria and single atrium, and these two bottom chambers are the right and left ventricles, but these atrium and ventricle are connected with valves. In today's class we will discuss how the blood flows through the heart, and we will talk about its movement and all the phenomena. The 5 diagrams below show how the blood moves through the heart. Here you can see the 5 pictures in a circular position, so it's a cycle of the movement of blood through the heart to the body. The muscles of atria and the ventricles have to contract to squeeze the blood, which means they push firmly. Squeeze means to push firmly through the heart. Both atria contract together, then both ventricles contract together. Now we will see that how these atrias and ventricles contract. The valves stop the blood from going into the wrong direction. You should bear in mind this fact that the valves that we have, as you can see here, the valves that are present in the heart, their function is to stop the blood from going backward or in the wrong direction. Each time the heart beats, you hear a double sound, lup, dup, lup, dup, and so on. The diagrams below will help you to understand what causes these sounds. Now here is a complete circle that will tell you the movement of blood through the heart. As we know that for our survival, oxygen is very necessary, and day and night our body is working and it needs energy. We get oxygen to perform many of our daily activities. Now, if the body is consuming this oxygen, so sometimes it works so hard that the heart has to beat more faster, and the movement through which the blood is flows through the heart to the body also speed up. Now what happens? The blood that our body is using, when it has the little oxygen, because it's consuming continuously and it's non-stop process, so that oxygen with the blood comes through the heart, through the right atria. And on the other side, the blood from the lungs, because this is the blood that is coming from the body to the heart. On the same side, body also need to continue its work, so the heart from the lungs come through the veins to the heart. So it's a side by side process. When the atria are full of blood, the muscles of the atria squeeze the blood through the walls into the ventricles. Now what happens when the atria become saturated and there is no space left into the atria start pushing the blood firmly into the ventricles. Their walls contract and they push the blood into the ventricles. And at that time, now the step came that name as the atrial contraction. Atrial contraction, in which when atria begins to, the walls of the atria started pushing the blood into the ventricles. So at the time came when the ventricles become saturated and there is no space left behind in the ventricles to fill with the more blood. So what happens? The muscular wall that is connecting the atrium to the ventricle, the valve becomes shut, and at that time a noise is made, that is the lub sound. What is it? The lub sound. Here you can see this is the lub sound. So more blood begins to fill the atria. The ventricles are now full of blood. The muscles of the ventricles contract and this causes the walls to close with such force that a noise is made. This is the lub sound. Now come to the next step. Here is the ventricular contraction. As this is the atrial contraction, this is the ventricular contraction. When the ventricles contract because they have saturated and the blood now is going to leave the body, so the walls of the ventricles contract the blood, and blood from these ventricles move from this point that is a valve to the artery and is about to leave the body to the lungs and to the other parts of the body. The contraction of the ventricles forces the blood into the arteries. As I told you, this is the valve from this artery and it leaves from this valve to the body and to the lungs. The two arteries also contain the valves. After the blood has left the ventricles, the valves close, such a force that made another noise. That is the dub sound. Once there was a time when the ventricles become saturated, when there was no left space in the ventricles to fill with the blood, so at that time we can hear the sound that is the lub sound. And again here, when the ventricular walls pushes the blood firmly to the arteries and the blood is going to leave the body now, so again you can at this point hear the sound that is the dub sound. Now come to this step. Here is the blood that was, as you can see these two arrows, blood to the body. From this valve, the blood, oxygenated blood, that is means the oxygen rich blood, because our body doesn't need the oxygen poor blood, it needs the oxygen rich blood, that is named as oxygenated blood, because it needs oxygen to perform the activities and to get itself energetic and active. And from this you can see the two small arteries. Here the blood to the lungs provided, because we know that the blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart to the body or to the lungs are named as arteries, while at the same side, alongside, because the blood is leaving the heart, so again from the body, the deoxygenated blood, that is the oxygen poor blood, comes from the body to the heart, and the process again started. So this is the 5-step movement of blood to the heart. Now the blood vessels that we have talked about are the arteries and veins. But remember that there are 3 types of blood vessels that our body carries: arteries, capillaries, and veins. We know that the blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart are known as arteries, while the blood vessels that carry blood towards the heart are called veins. But the third blood vessel these are the blood vessels that act as the bridge between the arteries and the veins, which means that they connect these two blood vessels. Arteries have thick walls of muscle and elastic fibers, which means they are made up of the tissues if it's a muscle. Capillaries walls are 1 cell thick. As you can see here, there is a 1 layer of cell, while in artery, the thick muscular layer with elastic fiber. In veins, fairly thick walls which contain some elastic fibers. So this is a vein, thin muscular layer with some elastic fibers. In arteries, walls present only where arteries leave the heart. As we have discussed, the walls through which the blood was leaving the heart and reaching towards the parts of the body. Capillaries have no walls, and veins have walls in the long veins of the arms and the legs, because also they have to receive the oxygen and the blood to perform the activities. In arteries, blood flows in pulses. Now, what is a pulse? Pulse is the description of a rhythmic expansion of artery that is caused when blood leaves the ventricles. That is the pulse. And in capillaries, blood flows steadily, and which means that in a very even manner. And here also in veins, blood flows steadily. In arteries, blood is under the high pressure. In capillaries, blood pressure changes, and in veins, blood is under the low pressure. Arteries, blood is bright red and contains oxygen. If the blood vessels are containing oxygen and are present with a bright red color, which means that they are oxygen rich vessels, and they are called the oxygenated vessels. Blood is losing oxygen and gaining carbon dioxide. And in veins, blood is dull red and contains very little oxygen, which means that it is deoxygenated blood, with the removing of the oxygen, or with a very little amount of the oxygen, or sometimes no present. So arteries it contains the oxygenated blood, while the veins contains the deoxygenated blood. So this is all about the comparison of the three types of blood vessels that you should keep in mind, and you have to bear in mind the difference of the three blood vessels other than the arteries and veins, also the concept of capillaries, and the movement of the blood. You should know all these 5 steps, and how that this circular position in 5 steps, the heart moves from the blood, leaves the body, then again receive the blood and leaves the body.